WD here. In this video, I'm going to be going over how to build a Railburst Flak cannon. I'm going to start with a turret template and then put my turret base in the middle. I'm going to build this pretty small, but you can make it as big as you want. I'll make mine 7 by 7. The advantage of Railburst is that you don't need gunpowder modules, which lets you shoot a bigger shell out of a 1 meter size clip than you normally would. It's very effective at dealing with clusters of small and medium missiles at close ranges. The downside is, it's not as good versus large missiles as traditional CIWS is, and you can't really use it to fight enemy ships since it does little damage to blocks. For the tetrising, you'll have to decide if you want to use ejectors or not. Ejectors make your gun less volatile, but it makes it less efficient, so it's up to you if it's worth it. First, I'm going to grab the 1 meter autoloader and then make a T shape with the ammo clips. So I'll just place it like this, forming a T shape. Now, if you're going to use an ejector, the ejector goes at the bottom here. Something like this, or like this, it doesn't really matter. And then for your ammo intakes, you'll put them on the bottom like this, and then you'll need 2 more on the top on any of the clips. So this or this. Make sure you don't put one on top of the autoloader because you need it to connect to the rest of the gun. Now for this video, I'm not going to use ammo ejectors, so I'll get rid of it and just replace it with an additional clip. So this will be my tetrising pattern. Next, I'm going to grab the prefab tool and prefab the whole thing. I'm just going to do some simple tetrising here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining how to do this. You can look up other videos for that. So I'll put one here, here. Now I have to connect all the autoloaders up using my 6-way connectors here. Since this gun is going to be Railburst, I can use the 6-way connectors, which are cheaper than the gauge coolers. So I'll just connect them up. So right here, I have a bit of an issue. So some of these intakes are blocking my path. So all I have to do is remove this intake here and then put it on the other clip that's attached to the same autoloader cluster. So now I can go ahead and attach these guys. And I need to do the same thing over here, move that, so I can connect the rest of them up. And then I think I'll move this one as well. Okay, this is a bit small, so I'm going to add another layer of autoloaders on top. And a neat trick you can use is to prefab the whole thing like this. And then you enable mirror mode. And then you'll place it like this. And then you grab your prefab. And then you'll prefab the mirrored image. And then you just Control Z to get rid of them. And then you'll flip it upside down. And now you can just put it on top like this. And everything will be connected. Now I'm going to add the firing piece to finish the gun. So the firing piece will go right here. And I have to change this to either a gauge cooler or a gauge increaser since you can't connect 6-way connectors directly to your firing piece. So I'll just connect it to a gauge cooler. Now I'll add a mantlet. Use the AA one. We'll add some barrels. And since this is a railgun, you'll need railgun magnets and railgun chargers. Now I gotta add some blocks at the bottom so things don't fall off when I turn connection rules back on. So I'll just put a couple of connectors at the bottom here. Right, everything's connected now. Now, if you're concerned about everything falling off if this single block here dies, then one thing you can do is, if you go back on your main vehicle, you can delete these blocks around the turret base. And then on your turret sub-object, you can add in struts that will connect upwards like this, so that even if the center block dies, everything still stays connected. Right, so now if we just delete the block in the middle, things are still connected because they're connected to the struts, which are connected to the turret itself. So that's one thing you can do if you're concerned about that. Next is customizing the shell that we'll be using. So to keep it simple, the shell I'm going to use is 4 modules long. It's going to have a single time fuse, 2 munition defense bodies, and a munition defense head. It'll be 300 millimeters long, and I'll have enough rail draw so that it goes 400 meters per second. So I have a rail draw of about 1,190. If you're using ejectors, then you'll want to make a shell with an ejection diffuser. So it's going to be 5 parts long. You'll have the time fuse, you'll have the emergency ejection diffuser, 2 munition defense bodies, and then a munition defense head. Since you have this extra module here that takes up length, you can't make it 300 millimeters like the other shell, so you just have to increase your shell gauge until you get to your clip length. Right, at 266 millimeters, this is as long as I can make the shell so that it fits into clips that are 1 meter long. For this video, since I'm not using the ejectors, I'm going to use the first shell here that doesn't have any diffusers in it. So this shell does 2,675 munition damage. Now against missiles, they actually take a 2 times bonus damage multiplier against munition damage. So this actually does about 5,000 damage per shot to missiles. It also has a pretty wide explosion radius, so often you'll end up hitting more than one missile if you catch them in the radius. Now I'm going to go into my settings here and set the charge per shot to 1,190, which is what we need to get 400 meters per second shells. Now I have to add in railgun chargers. One way I like to do that is to find empty spaces like this and fill them up with railgun chargers, instead of adding an entirely new layer on top. Alright, since this is a railgun, you'll need batteries, so I'll add a battery somewhere, like this. Right now my gauge is only 66 millimeters, so I need to add in some gauge increasers to get up to the 300 millimeters that I want. I'm just going to replace some of these connectors with gauge increasers until I can hit 300 millimeters. Alright, something like this should be enough. Go into settings and then set your desired gauge to 300 millimeters. Currently our rail use is 2,000 per second, but we're only charging at 1,000 per second, so I'm going to have to add in some more chargers. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'll move this intake here, so that I can use this empty space here for more chargers. I'm going to assign the same shell to the new intake, and then I'll use this space here for more chargers. Right now we're charging at 2,000 per second, which is close enough for me. You can add in more if you want to. Next, since I'm using a timed fuse, I need to use a laser targeter to set the fuse time on my shells. So I'm just going to go in, see if there's any blocks that I can use. I can remove this connector here and everything else stays connected, so I'm going to replace that block with my laser targeter. Now this targeter should set the fuse time on all the shells. One thing you can do is go into your laser targeter settings and add a small offset time so that your shell explodes behind the enemy missile, so that the area of effect might be able to catch the next missile coming from behind it. Lastly, I need to limit the rate of fire. If I don't limit the rate of fire, it's just going to shoot all the shells out in a split second and waste everything, like this. I'm going to limit the rate of fire to 102.5, which is my autoloader limit. You can make this faster if you want to get your shells out faster. Just know that you'll have to reload afterwards because it dumps everything faster than the autoloaders can reload. So now we should be firing at a steady rate. Now I'm going to add in my CIWS controller. I'm just going to put it here for now. For the rule sets, I'm just going to keep it simple. I wanted to ignore shells that are too far away, so I'll just have it shoot anything closer than 800 meters. I'll add in some weight for shells that are clustered together. So there's a value for cluster size. So I want this to prioritize missiles that are in big clusters, deprioritize missiles that are by themselves a little bit. I'll add in a rule to deprioritize missiles that have been shot at already. So I'll do wait, shots fired, and then we'll just have some negative weight for shots fired. And I'll just leave everything else alone. You can come up with your own rule set if you want to. I'm going to go into controllers and turn on set as persistent so that we can see what this is aiming at. Now let's test and see how this performs. I'm going to spawn in a Maelstrom which uses a good amount of missiles. Okay, looks like I need to tweak some of the settings here. So I think my offset is a bit too high, so I need to turn that down a bit. Alright, there's the laser targeter. I think this is a bit too much. I'm going to decrease it to 0.01 seconds. Also, I'm going to increase the rate of fire a little bit so it can handle the volley of missiles better. I'll do 300 per minute for now and see how well that does. Alright, this is test number 2 with our new settings. Okay, I think I need to tweak the CIWS controller settings a bit more. So I'm going to up the distance to about 1000. I'm going to decrease the weight for the cluster size a little bit. And I'll add in a bit of weight for distance so it prioritizes closer missiles. So distance, do 0 to 1000, and then weight at minimum. We'll just set a moderate weight. Maximum will decrease it a little bit. Alright, let's see how it does now with the new settings. It's doing better with the new settings, but I feel like this can be optimized even more. Like right here, it just wasted a bunch of shots on a missile that's stuck on the Maelstrom. One thing you can do to optimize things is to make your caliber smaller. So with our 300mm caliber, this has a reload time of 46 seconds. But if you were to decrease it to say 200, then the reload time is only 27 seconds. Of course, the trade-off is you're doing less damage, but what I find a lot of the time is the damage for 300mm is overkill for most medium and all small missiles that you're going to go up against. So consider a smaller caliber like 200 so that you can reload faster. And an easy way to change that is to go into your settings and just decrease the gauge to 200. And now you should be shooting the smaller shells that reload way faster. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.